said, I'm trying to use this sermon as kind of a segue, since we've kind of taken a break from our study on God's will. We're kind of moving back into that study, and this is a lesson I learned years ago, and it's something I've been chewing on for years, and it's very, very applicable in the area of understanding God's will. And I hope that it's as helpful to you as it has been to me. So, most of you would recognize this. I'm trying to use more aids. This is a katana. This is a Japanese samurai sword. It's one of the most recognizable and respected and iconic swords in the world. It's got a very, very simple design, curved blade, signature wrapped handle, razor sharpness that, again, it very meticulously represents a culture of tradition and performance. There's a reason these were legendary. They performed very, very well. Now, I know very little about using this thing. All right, I do know how to hold it. I know that in America we're brought up, we play baseball, right? So you get that baseball and you bat and you hit it. Well, that's not how you hold this thing. You're supposed to basically have an open hand, and it's designed to be controlled a different way. Well, I was taught from a very, very different tradition. Filipinos, they're much more. It's just a completely different culture. The way they handle their weapons, everything is different. And so, like I said, I know very little about how to actually use this thing. This is actually art for me, and we'll explain that a little bit more later, but that's why I have it in my house. So, before we really get into it, I want to mention that the hype over this thing is primarily due to the hype that the actual Japanese made over it. It's a big deal to Japanese people. And then Hollywood. Hollywood makes a big deal of these things. So the reason why I say that is because the weapons of other cultures were just as efficient, and in many ways they were more efficient. And the reason why I'm taking the time to do that is because I don't want you to spend the whole time saying, well, I'd just rather have a shotgun or a Glock. Yes, obviously there are much, much more efficient tools for defending yourself or your honor or whatever than this. I'm trying to use this thing and the culture surrounding it to teach you some lessons about how to discern God's will. And specifically in the areas of marriage and ministry. Lock onto those two things, marriage and ministry. The first time kind of the train of thought that introduced me to this is the fact that the way the Japanese would go about producing and selecting one of these was very, very similar to the way I think about raising my daughters and giving them away someday. Now, question?
Did the early men use them to cut their way through the jungle?
No, that was a machete.
Yeah, that was a machete. They used this to cut their way through the political spectrum, strata of Japan. But, so getting back to this, what I hope you'll see is that, and again, I want to make something very, very clear. You know, to us, this is a piece of metal, you know, a whacking stick. To the Japanese, this was life. This was your family for hundreds and hundreds of years. This was your status. This was a very, very big deal, okay? And so to many Japanese people, many Japanese families, a wife would come and go, but you got to take care of this. Seriously. So I don't want this to sound demeaning in any way, because to a Japanese person, to compare this to selecting a wife would be to put a wife at a very, very high place. Okay, now again, I know that's horrible for us in this culture, but to the Japanese, in the original article I read, that was not the way at all. This was to elevate women. Okay, so also in the area of ministry, it's about how do you go about recognizing and selecting and producing understanding God's will when it comes to marriage and ministry. Hopefully some of these things will play out. Now, but again, if you can't get past the sword thing, think of your favorite gun, or your favorite farm tool, or your favorite whatever, because the principles are pretty much interchangeable. All right, I'm just doing this for entertainment value. Number 1, production. Take a Bible, turn if you would to 2 Peter chapter 1. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 21. 2 Peter chapter 1. Look at verse 21. Now, this is just these are some modern guys who are going through the ancient process of producing a sword. And it's all about tradition. It is all about not just tradition for tradition's sake, but practical tradition. And these are values and traditions that have been handed down for centuries upon centuries. So what does that have to do with a marriage, finding a spouse, and finding God's will? Well, 2 Peter chapter number 1, verse 21, there's a very, very important verse. The Bible says, "For the prophecy," the book, the traditions that we hold, "came not in old time by the will of man, but holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost." Right? What does that mean? That means that the traditions and the values, the principles, the doctrines, and the disciplines that we engage here as a church, that we engage in rearing our kids, helping our kids select a spouse, or helping or choosing a ministry, it's based on principles that have been handed down for a long, long, long time. Amen? Now, stop and let that sink in. All right? These guys are doing it a specific way because they're convinced that's the best. And at the time period, it was the best. All right? That's important to understand. So, we all know 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16, all Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable, and you go down the list. So, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, "These things shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children." This process was handed down, passed down, father to son. It was a matter of family honor, and we as individuals, especially we as parents, whether you're talking about handing your daughter to someone else, or your son getting married, something his life is going to depend upon, something he's going to treasure and make a part of him, which is what they did. You better make sure that it's built right, that it's made right, that what it's made out of is right, okay? And this was not some one-man job. This is the product of a team of people, which is very uncommon. Most people don't know this. They think of, well, a swordsmith, some master. Well, this master would be in charge of a team of people. The master would select the materials. The master would make the blade. But he had a team of people that would make this. He wouldn't bother with this. It's wood. This would get dinged up, broken up, and get replaced a dozen times. This is the heart of the sword. This is what matters. Even this is going to go bad. No big deal. But different other pieces, he would hire people or have people on his team that he would trust to make to the standard. Dad, that's you. You make sure that the heart is right, and recognize that you need other people to fill in the gaps. Okay? So, number 1, practical traditions and values. Clear standards and tolerances. We go back to Exodus 20, right? Did God give some instructions? Yeah, some thou shalt and thou shalt not. Take your Bible and look at Proverbs chapter 19. There's a verse I want you to see there. Proverbs chapter 19. Look at verse 16. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 16. It says this: "He that keepeth the commandment keepeth his own soul, but he that despiseth his ways shall die." Now, that verse is one of the things, when you understand what that picture represents and the associations with this right here, that verse just is brilliant. Why? Because he that keepeth the commandment keepeth his own soul. if you're producing a tool that you are going to risk your life, count your life on, it needs to be right. You want the principles and the process and the procedures by which it was produced to be rock solid, up to spec, certain standards. Yes? Someone's making your brakes. Someone's producing if you're a rock climber and you want to make sure that the rope and the carabiners and everything that you've used is up to certain specs. Some of you have probably heard that in Japan, in ancient times, if a warrior was if these men produced a blade and a warrior was presented this blade and he took it into battle and the blade broke, swordsmith and his team not only died, they killed themselves in seppuku. They would take a knife and they would die because they had disgraced themselves, because they existed. The purpose of their existence was to produce that. And if they failed, their honor was shot. I mean, that was how they did it. That was what it was. So again, I read the verse again. He that keepeth the commandment, follows the principles and the procedures, keepeth his own soul. But he that despiseth his ways shall die. And that's why you may see this in some old Japanese movies, or and you certainly see this in the literature. If this guy over here is not doing exactly what this guy wants, and vice versa, if this guy's tired or old or sick or for some reason he's not doing what is normal, his assistant would say, "Master, what's wrong? You trying to get us both killed? Let's get this right. Maybe you need to wait. Maybe you need to heal. Maybe the material isn't right." But the whole team worked together to make sure that what they produced was going to do what it was supposed to do. For not just life, but for centuries. Okay? Materials. This is a screenshot from a video where a group of people, highly skilled modern swordsmiths, decided to follow the texts, these Japanese texts, to the letter, and they actually they created the metal. They pulled it from ore, and they heated it up, and they made the little cakes and the bricks, and they hammered it, and they kept, slowly they brought out of this large chunk that had been sent from Japan, this small amount of metal that they could use for a sword. So I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, "What are you made of?" Right? What are you made of? Now, there was a video I saw not too long ago where a person took some aluminum foil that you would buy at the store, pulled the cardboard out, heated it up, melted it, and then put it on a bench grinder and made a knife out of it. It looked really cool, except you could break it. You know what I mean? Isaac, when he was smaller, he'd watch these ninja movies and he'd say, "Ooh, Dad, this ninja sword is only $20. I'd say, "Yeah, son, there's a reason for that." Right? What are you made of? What are the tools and the techniques that were used to create you? And I brought this because I wanted to illustrate something to you. So when I was in Hong Kong in 1997, I was at the White Swan Hotel in Guangzhou, China, and I saw this. And I thought, "Ooh, that's cool, I want one." And so I bought it. And I even pulled it out to inspect it, because I'm a master samurai sword inspector. And I was like, "Look at the thickness on that thing. It ain't breaking. Look how thick that is." You know what I mean? Nice quality, you know? And I got it home. And I realized that this is a piece of junk. This is nothing more than something that's supposed to sit on a wall and do nothing. Why? Look at that. That is called a rat tail tang. The blade is supposed to go all the way through and slowly taper out and have 2 pins in it. As a matter of fact, if you were to look at this, you could see 2 bamboo pins here, and basically this blade goes all the way down to here. It's a completely different thing. This is a piece of junk. This thickness that looks good means it doesn't wield well, and if you were to hit this on anything, guess what would happen right here? This is a piece of junk. It's got a screw tip on it where you put a nut on it. This is garbage, okay? This is tourist trap. Hey, you stupid American, look. You know, you buy everything else from China. You know, that's what this is all about, all right? Piece of garbage. It even says right there on the Suba, the handguard, made in China. Piece of garbage, all right? It's just, they even carved the thing to have the signature, you know, diamond shape on it. Just garbage. So, what is it made of? Incidentally, this is stainless steel, all right? I could probably whack it on something and break it. This is folded tool steel. It's been folded and folded and folded and folded. It has a very, very hard core inside of it, and softer metal has been wrapped around it. It's been tempered in a specific way. The reason why that's up there is you see that it is that there are techniques associated with this. So the way that they quench it, it makes it extremely hard on the edge, so that it will hold an edge. But it's flexible enough that when you do battle with it, it won't break. This is completely different than this. Okay? Now, are you ready? This is my daughter, and this is somebody else's daughter. Yes? Mm-hmm. This is the way it's going to be. And I'm going to tell you, when this came home from China, it looked pretty. You know, you can doll it up, you can make it look cool. There were others that that I could have bought that looked just like this. Matter of fact, I brought one home for a friend of mine that looked identical to this. The problem is, same thing. You can make your daughter look the part. You can make your son look the part. You can make your church or your ministry look the part. But when it's battle time, you're going to see the difference between what's real and what's not. And it's going to be based on what it's made of. Did someone take the time to heat it up, hammer it out, forge it out, and go through the process, use the right materials? You know, this right here, just for your little lesson here, that white part, that is the belly of a manta ray, the fish. It's ray skin. Why? Because when you get sweaty, it gets stickier and it holds this together. Every piece of this, every part of it, has a purpose, all right? As opposed to this thing, all right? So, materials, tools, techniques that are used. What are you made of? What are the circumstances that have you ever felt like God is folding you and hammering you out and folding you and hammering you out? And yet He wants you to be hard in some places and soft in others? Yeah. It's so you can do your job. Okay?
We made male snails puppy don't fail.
You can do it that way.
That's what I was over.
Something else we need to recognize. The making of this was a sacred situation. They saw it as a spiritual process. Christians, rearing kids, but a wedding. You know, the other day I was just kind of frustrated because I went to a wedding and it was fun and games. It was funny. It was cutesies. It wasn't the serious affair that it should be. I told you before, someone sent me a message on Facebook and said, "Hey, you're ordained. Will you marry us?" I said, "Well, I have some requirements." "Oh, okay." And then I saw another Facebook. "Hey, anybody out there ordained? We want to get hitched." It just shows that they don't think of marriage the same way I think of marriage. And when this is taken from a movie where he's supposed to be the greatest in the world, and this warrior needs the greatest in the world, and so he shows up and he tests this person, and then he says, "Come back in a month." It took a month. And the process of giving this out was a testing of the warrior and a testing of the material. Speaking of testing, that is an actual Japanese drawing of tamashigiri, which is the process of testing, very rigorous process of testing of the blade. Yep, that's 2 people. And the greatest swords were 3-body swords, where you could, with one strike, go through 3 bodies. The idea was, if it'll go through 3 bodies or 3 pigs, it'll go through 1 guy, no problem. So there was a testing method. Again, there's several scriptures that talk about trust in the Lord with all thine heart. If you've done it His way, you can trust it. But if you've leaned to your own understanding, if you've not been tested, if you've not been tried, then how do you know if it's going to work or not? And by the way, the reason I put bodies up there is because that's how they did it. They would take prisoners, and they would say, will this do what it's supposed to do? They would hang them up or string them up, and they would see if this does what it's supposed to do. Right? Today, we have tatami mats where they wrap up bamboo mats, and they have a bamboo shoot in them that's supposed to represent a bone, and it's a whole art form. But again, even still. Now, this is something you wouldn't expect. This is the process. Miller Brothers knives. They're thousands of dollars for one of their knives or swords. They're several thousand. That is their sword, and that is 600 plus. That is the handle. Testing. What kind of... So again, there's the sword. There's the block that it is clamped to. There's 600 pounds on a chain. That's one of many tests that they'll do. They'll do a 45-degree test or a 90-degree test where they'll put it in a vise and they'll crank this blade and it's supposed to go back true. And if it doesn't, they won't sell it. So when you buy a blade from Miller Brothers, you know it ain't breaking. You can do whatever you want with it. If you are selecting, if you're trying to find God's will for a wife or a husband or a ministry, what kind of testing have you had? And what kind of pressure have you seen them under? That's why I don't marry people who haven't had fights. That's why I pick fights before I'll marry people. That's why you want to see that person under intense pressure. And if they freak out, ladies, if a boy is whining about paying his bills at 19 years old where he basically has no bills, what do you think he's going to be when he really has some pressure? Gentlemen, if you take a girl out to a restaurant and her steak isn't made perfectly well and she throws a fit and gets indignant, really? If her hamburger has ketchup on it and she didn't want ketchup on it, and she throws a fit and starts embarrassing you in McDonald's, take her to Burger King, or you can have it your way. Let me tell you, the proverb says, "She that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bones." And so, test that person out. Ministry. You've heard me talk about my dad asking his deacons to wear a tie. Why? Nothing to do with a piece of thing around your neck. It was, are you willing to sacrifice your liberty in order to be qualified to serve? Do you want this bad enough? All right? Testing. What kind of pressure can you handle? So if you're seeking for God's will, see what kind of pressure they've been under. How have they been tested? Then there is selection. This is from the movie The Last Samurai, and this is about the fact that it's designed to fill a need. Why would a person in Japan want one of these? Now in America we would be like, all right, it's a toy, Pastor Brian. Yep, you've got your cool sword there. In Japan it was completely different. If you are going to be a man, if you're going to have a wife, if you're going to own land, if you're going to be anything other than a weak, foolish, stupid peasant, you're going to have one of these, you're going to know how to use it. Not only are you going to have one of these, but you're going to have a good one. This, by the way, is an absolute base level, entry level Aido katana. So if you are just interested in getting into Kendo or Aido, this is the base level. It's not going to break on you, but if you decide you're not into it, you're not out a whole lot of money. That's what this is. That is not what that was supposed to represent. Okay? So, designed to fill a need. A warrior needed a weapon. This, in Japan, having this stuck in your kimono would mean you could enter certain tea rooms or not. You were into certain conversations or you were not. You were allowed in certain positions or you were just not even considered. Just by having this here. Okay? Did God say in Genesis chapter 2, it is not good that man should be alone? And so is there a need? God knew that young men would need young women. That we need a wife. And we need to be careful because while it is absolutely true that God does specifically bless certain men with a supernatural ability to not need a woman, they are few and far between. Most of us need a woman. And vice versa. Some ladies have a supernatural, they just have no need at all. Most women do. I remember years ago, we had I was counseling a lady, and she was struggling with parenting, and I said, you need a dad. No. So wait a minute. Because the kid was like 5 years old. And I'm thinking, you're already seeing serious damage being done by the lack of a father, and you're not even considering it. You love your career so much. So you tell me that I'm supposed to fix your kid, but you're not willing to set aside your career to get married so that your kid will have a daddy? Ooh, we don't want to hear that. Tough. So, God, there's a need, okay? And God said in Proverbs, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 14 says, a prudent wife is of the Lord. So guys, you've got a good one, thank God. It wasn't you were being so smart. God blessed you. And that's the case with me. And then ministry. Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 15 said that I will send them pastors after my own heart, and they will instruct you and teach you in the way that thou shalt go. So when it comes to ministry, you need to understand that it's about filling a need. Please get this and don't get caught up with this thing, okay? There's a need. And if you're going into marriage, what's the need? Do you really understand the need? And if you're thinking all about, well, I want this and I want that, and you're not thinking about what you need and what they need, you're going into the ministry and you're not even thinking about God's will. You're thinking about what you want, and that's it. And many's a young man, many a young lady have gotten married, put the ring on, not because they were pursuing God's will for their life, but because they wanted something. And usually it wasn't something spiritual. That's a dumb reason to get married. And you're searching for God's will. And incidentally, there were swordsmiths who were commissioned to make a sword by a shogun or by a samurai, a family, and basically the swordsmith would come to the shogun or the lord, and he would say, your son's not ready. You have trained, you have been to war, you have worked, I handed you this, and you've taken care of it. You know how to use it. Your fool son's going to go out there and grab it and go whack into trees and snap this thing off and break my reputation, break his, and probably hurt himself. He's not ready. And so many fathers said, finish it, and then I'll give it to him. And the process was, when you're ready. And that's what happened in this movie. This was a big deal in the movie. It is, you're ready. You're one of us. You're ready to step up and fulfill the need that is here. And here are the tools to fulfill that need. That's what it was about. So when it comes to marriage, do you understand the need? When it comes to ministry, listen, what's the need? What need are you filling? to what extent are you prepared to fill that need? Those are huge questions. I'm in the process of reevaluating my philosophy of missions. Why? Because 200 years ago, you needed white people traveling all over the world with this. Today, we have computers. Today, you could send digitally a memory stick or a program, etc., with an entire curriculum. Can you not? Yeah, yes, there still needs to be training. Yes, there needs to be all manner of things. And I'm not saying that I don't advocate mission work. Of course I do. But the days of the white man walking into the village and saying, I'm here to save you with the gospel, my friends, we need to be rethinking that. Especially in places where the white man shows up and he gets shot before he gets off. He gets out of the plane and he's shot. Yeah? You know, Whitey decides he's going to waltz into Afghanistan. You know, if Mike said, well, God has called me to be a pastor in Turkey. You know, I mean, come on. Really? You're going to set off the plane and say, how you doing? You know? You don't fit. You see what I'm saying? We need to think very carefully about what is the need and what is the best tool to meet that job. What is the best way to go about it? I'm going to tell you, it infuriates me when I see martyrs who didn't need to be martyrs. They put themselves in a bad position that they didn't have to put themselves in. Or worse, they hauled their kids into a bad situation that they didn't have to haul their kids into. It's about getting the job done. It's about meeting the need. What is the need, and who is the best person to meet that need? How well would a football team do if the quarterback decided he had to make all the touchdowns? Well, I got to run the ball. Not very well, right. Not very well at all. It takes a team, and we need to realize that the church is more than just us white people. Okay? Again, I don't want to take too... All right, so the wisest of samurai were very meticulous and careful about selecting a sword. Now, that was meant to be humorous because obviously we're not talking about the wisest of samurai there. Okay? Anybody remember what Samson said when he saw a girl, went home?
Get her for me.
Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. Right? That would be Judges chapter 14, verse 2. And Dad said, really? There's no woman of your own kin and your own people? There are no girls that meet the technical qualifications? You went to the mall and you saw a samurai sword and you went, I want it, Daddy. Really? How did that work out for Samson, by the way? His first marriage?
Not well.
Yeah, real bad. Then he saw another girl. How'd that work out for him?
Even worse.
Even worse. So, is the selecting of a wife or a spouse important? The ability to recognize something that's well made. The ability to understand different specifications. The taking the time to spend time with the maker. How many young men are just anxious to go out on a double date with possible in-laws? Ryan. See?
Well, you know.
For us older folks, that makes all the sense in the world, right? But how much fun is that? Certainly for a young man that's got nothing on his mind other than playing kissy face. You know what I'm saying? But I got news for you, young man. If you want to know something about the daughter, spend time with the parents. You want to know something about that young man? Spend time with the parents. And I don't care how much she says, oh, I'm nothing like my mom or I'm nothing like my dad. You wait. You wait. I got to get off of that. Like I said, this could be a series, right? So, you learn about the swordsmith. You learn, you got to be able to when you are selecting something, there were so many different pieces that you selected. All right, what color was this going to be? What material was this going to be made out of? What material was this going to be made of? What material was this going to be made of? How long was it going to be? You want to see something? This might give you a laugh. So, thing's supposed to fit. You know? I'm 5'6". Watch. Dunk. It's supposed to be an inch. When you hold it at the suba, it's supposed to be an inch off the ground. Not even close. This thing's too big for me. And if I walked into any kendo school, they would say, sorry, you got to buy a sword. This doesn't fit you. This wasn't made for you. We listening? She wasn't made for you. He wasn't made for you. That ministry wasn't made for you. You weren't made for it. It doesn't fit. And if you try and force it, you know, when you're taking a 4-foot-long razor blade and an instructor tells you to get your hands, pinch this blade, and put it in your kimono and pull it out and draw it, if that thing is too long or too short, you're going to have a hard time. You're not going to be able to do it right. You know, can you imagine Isaac? Take this thing and... You know what I mean? It's got to fit. There's a right way to do it. There's a wrong way to do it. Gentlemen, you ever taken a young man and given him a full-size, long 12-gauge? Right? It's got to fit. Isaac loves shooting my little 22 Winchester pump. Why? Because it's light, it's easy, and he can be on it. Get a big 12-gauge, and he's like, Dad! Right? He's not ready for it. Got to move on. So, again, there are so many things here. Get this in your head. You have to be the right one to get the right one. There is a such thing as you're not ready for this, and there's a such thing as this just isn't right for you. It's just not a good match. There are technicalities that just don't match up. It doesn't fit you. Right? And so, you know, Psalm 37:4 is one of the most misunderstood texts. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of your heart. Oh, if I just love God, he'll give me everything I want. No. If you delight yourself in the Lord and you are focused on pleasing him and engaging the mission, he will give you the desire. All of a sudden, you'll look at that girl in a way you've never looked at any girl before. All of a sudden, you'll look at that boy in a way you've never looked at a boy before. All of a sudden, you'll look at that ministry. What in the world did I care about New Washington, Indiana, before I came here? It was zero. It was nothing to me. And yet, here is, next to my God and my family, the love of my life is here. You know what I mean? What in the world did I care? God does that for you. Now, please, I don't have time for this. You got to hear it anyway, okay? You guys know I went to Pensacola. I saw Rebecca Williamson. I'm going to marry her. Oh, I felt so strongly. I felt so powerfully, right? We didn't fit. And in a matter of probably 6 hours, I went from ready to propose to nope. That's not something you want to have happen on the other side of this. Amen? Take your time. Pay attention. Go through the process. You know, one of the things that at the end of all the technical specifications, they'd give the guy it and he'd say, go do these tests. And it had to feel right. It just had to feel right. He had to pick it up and say, it's beautiful. I can't stop looking at it. I want this. This feels right. By the way, for a guy that was trained in the Filipino style, oh my gosh. Isaac is being trained in the Filipino style. He goes, I don't like this. I don't like this. I was not trained to fight like this. I was trained to fight that just feels wrong. I wouldn't take this in a battle. I wasn't trained to fight with this. Feels off. But someone who is trained in this style would be able to tell the ergonomics, he'd be able to appreciate it. And he'd know how to use it. This isn't for me. I appreciate it for what it is. It's art, but, and we'll get there in a second, but, this doesn't fit me. Give me a bolo, give me anyway. Yeah, give me a bolo or a ganunting or a, anyway. So, moving along. You know, man, I wish we had time. Get the notes. Go read Genesis chapter 24, Isaac and Rebekah. So much. Did Isaac go to the distant land and pick out the one he wanted? Or did his dad send a servant who understood how to appreciate the technical difficulties, how to test a girl, to come back with a girl that could be the one? And what happened? She comes back, and she's on the way, and she goes, oh, who's that guy out there? Oh, well, you'll meet him. Isaac comes out and says, who is that? And they got married. Why? Because not only did they fit the technical specs, where they technically fit together, they actually liked one another. Guys, this mentality, I spent 8 years telling my people that I didn't really want to be in Attica, that I hated Attica, and I hated Fountain County, but I was here because God made me. Ooh, I wonder why that didn't work out. Can you imagine? My father has made me marry you. I can't stand you, but I will do my best. That's going to be great. You know? That doesn't work. You got to want each other. And when you look at a ministry, man, Ann and I, we drove around here all over the place. This is where we want to live. This is where we want to be. And if this First Baptist Church doesn't work out, let's keep looking in this area, because we love this area. We like these people. And he's got this thing about Walmart. You go into Walmart, you see kind of different people at different Walmarts and different stores and Goodwills. You can get a feel for the culture. So that was her thing. You can ask her about that. But we walked away from here saying, yes, these are the people that we want to be with. It felt right. But once it was inside of the technical importances, right? The tolerances. All right, I still have too much. Okay. Appreciation. You think that old guy knows how to appreciate a katana? Yeah. You think he can tell whether something's weighted right, balanced right, wrapped right? Right? Incidentally, again, I don't want this to sound wrong, but Proverbs 31. Is that more focused on beauty and art, or more focused on function? Function. Yeah, a virtuous woman who can find. Do you realize how rare a good sword was back then? You could only find them in one place. And even still from certain very coveted families. Let me ask you, are people saying, oh wow, I want her? Ooh, I want to marry someone from that family? Or is it, you should think about that. So there is a functionality, and a wise person will be able to pick it up, get a feel for it, and have the intelligence. You'll understand war. You'll understand what it's supposed to be. Guys, can you, for those of you who are Bob, both Bobs, you could pick up a shotgun or an M4 and say yes or no. Correct? You could pick up a shotgun and say, no, I wouldn't want to hunt this. Bob, you can pick up an M4 and say, I don't want this here, this has too much stuff on it, barrel's too long, and then this isn't right for the mission. Correct?
Yeah.
You understand that, so you can do that. Can we teach our sons how to recognize what's truly valuable? Can we teach our daughters how to recognize what is truly valuable in a spouse? Can you recognize in a ministry a group of people that really want to build or really don't want to build? You know, you ask certain questions, you can find out. And I'm going to tell you, I've been saying it since I've been here. There's a difference between saying yes and the answer being yes. So, and then there's beauty. That, by the way, is a museum piece. And again, I wish I had all the time to talk about it, but man, beauty. It is so, it's underestimated. And we're being deceived. Remember, Satan's greatest lies are truths. Like God only cares what's on the inside. What's outside is a reflection of what's inside. Remember my old granny? You know, ugly ladies, only lazy ones? Oh, you can't judge a book by its cover. No, you can't. But you get in the pages and you learn something, right? Guys, the beauty of this thing. Oh, there's just so many different things. Let me illustrate something real quickly. Look at this. You see this? This is called a hamon line. Earlier you saw, I talked about techniques and you can see clay on the blade. There's a process that creates this hamon line. No two are the same unless they're presented or unless they're produced by a machine in a machine shop. That's fake. That's real. Real, fake. You know what I'm saying? Gentlemen, can you tell the difference between true beauty and painted on beauty? Now again, I don't know about you, that's not ugly. That's not rusted out, pitted out, ugly, nasty. That is beautiful. That is cheap. Garbage. And who would want to bet that it's rat-tailed? You know what I'm saying? It's cheap. It's cheap. It's cheap. Young ladies, don't look cheap. One of my youth pastors used to tell his daughters, when they were teased for being virgins, he would say, you could be like them today. They can never again be what you are.
Amen.
We need to go through the process, to teach and to train. And when you are broken, listen, it is amazing. They have found swords that were sunken in ships. They were a mess. Basically, everything but the blade was rotted and gone. But because the blade was made right, because they were made of the right stuff, they were able to be brought out. And those are some of the museum pieces you see. Some of them, if you go to Japan and you see museum pieces that are priceless, and exquisite, beautiful. They were under the sea. They were buried. They come back from being bent and broken and chipped. By the way, some of the most priceless swords on the planet are chipped. Broken. Why? It's the battle.